This past Friday, I took our cat Shadow to the vet, just like a routine checkup. He's growing up pretty well, it seems. He'll be 3 soon, which I suppose makes him a teenager in cat years. I'm not so good at those calculations. But Shadow really likes to sit in doorways. It drives the folks at home a little bit batty because it means he's underfoot a lot, and often doors can't even close. And he's not small. He's 12 pounds and a lot of fur. Sometimes when he walks around the apartment, I think we have a mountain lion living with us because his paws are so huge and he just stalks. It's possible he won't reach his full size until 5. He might get up to 18 pounds or more. So imagine that, lying across the threshold to your bedroom or to the bathroom. And whenever we open the door, the outside door that goes into the hallway of the apartment building, he tries to run out into the hallway. And of course, once he's out there, if he hears anyone else or anything unfamiliar, he zips right back inside. He is courageous, but also anxious. So when I took him to the vet and we took the subway for the first time, this cat who likes to run out thinking he's going to explore the world scrunched his huge body into like a third of the carrier and just like looked like this the whole time. Once we got there and he got out, he jumped up on the cabinets of the vet's office and he crept behind things and he was exploring every inch. And then, of course, when we got home, he laid out in his typical way along the piece of stone that transitions from the hall to the bathroom, catching his breath, stretching, showing off his belly, and generally living his best life on the threshold. And that's what I call him, actually, our threshold cat. He came to us at Christmas time of 2019, just a few months before the pandemic started. So 3 months into living with us, the world changed, and these children who'd been leaving the house every day and giving him some peace, now they were home all the time, making all the noise. I'm not sure it was great for him. I think he's a little bit stressed because of it. He is a home cat. He's afraid, but he wants to be brave, and he sits often in the in-between. And I think that actually encapsulates him. There's a push and pull to him. In the normal course of things, he's not all that snuggly, but when we got back from being away for a week, he was glued to us. He's just a threshold cat, both in the places that he wants to lie, but also in his nature. A colleague recently recommended the book Trusting Change by Karen Herring. It's a book about change, about how we approach it, how we handle it. The author began writing the book before the pandemic and considered scrapping it in light of the changed world, but was convinced to press on. And the result is a book that's part workbook, part self-help book, part moving reflections. And it begins with a description of thresholds. Herring writes, "A threshold, including the open doorway above it, has more typically served, literally and figuratively, to name our human experience of change and the site where it happens. A threshold is the meeting place between inside and outside, between here and there, between the familiar and the unknown." She writes, "In my own life transitions and in programs I lead for others in their times of change, I have followed the poetic tradition of naming these passages thresholds, and the ones crossing over them thresholders. In its most literal definition, a threshold is a strip of wood or stone at the base of a doorway. In many houses, it is still intended to keep the mud from washing into the home. In my cold northern climate, it is also an important barrier to keeping the cold from sweeping into the house in the winter. In China, a threshold might be 3 or more inches high, keeping the rainwater outside, but also encouraging attentiveness and an awareness of the honor of being invited into someone's home. The word threshold also describes the doorway itself and the larger entrance into a building or home. She continues, it represents a contact point between interior safety and the outside world. Traditionally, it has been regarded as a site of encounter, risk, and danger. It can be a place of separation, requiring us to leave something or someone, or perhaps even some part of ourselves. It is a locus of vulnerability where we face the possibilities of transformation. On the other side of a threshold, we might be required to do things we've never done, to face fears we have shunned for years, or to discover new gifts as well as limitations. She says, honoring the risks and challenges present on the threshold, many cultures have stories, rituals, blessings, and sometimes even deities offering protection and safe passage. In ancient Rome, the god Janus reigned over comings and goings. His image, carved over the gates of Roman cities, showed two faces connected at the back and pointed in opposite directions. With one face looking forward from the city gate and the other looking in, Janus provided protection while reminding those passing in either direction to notice what they were leaving and where they were going. Perhaps we should have named Shadow Janus. Janus was comfortable in the doorway. It was his purpose. That was his reason as a god. Shadow is comfortable there. We humans, not so comfortable, usually. We find it hard to be in that in-between. We find it hard to try to let go of what was past and to be brave stepping into the future. We want the world to be happy and wonderful more than it is difficult and sad. We want to disprove Blake's line that joy and woe are both part of the human experience, part of what makes all this holy and sacred and complex. Yet we can't disprove it because over and over, life teaches us that all is present in each moment. Heaven in a wildflower, eternity in the palm of our very mortal hands. Unitarian Universalists, though we are committed to living truthfully and openly, are just as vulnerable to developing a resistance to change, just as vulnerable to fearing what is new and unknown, just as vulnerable to stepping onto the threshold and freaking out and running back inside, hiding in the spaces we know. Maybe we do this in our personal lives, maybe we do this in our congregational life. The pandemic, which is, as far as we can tell, now becoming endemic, and about which I know we have talked a lot, it presents all of us with an interesting opportunity. Everything we knew as 2020 began shifted 3 months in. We've adapted and changed, and congregational life has changed. Already, religious life in America was on the decline. Throw in a global pandemic and the attendant trauma, grief, and existential crises, and you can imagine what's been happening these past 2.5 years, even if you haven't been following various surveys and polls. Most religious institutions have seen decline in membership and attendance, have found it hard to recruit, have found that folks are volunteering less, and in many cases giving less. While some folks are showing up in person, many remain online only, changing the nature of congregational life. But I'll tell you something. Even before the pandemic, when I arrived here in the late summer of 2017, already I was hearing about how membership was a concern and giving wasn't what it used to be and no one was stepping into leadership. So these things predate the pandemic, and I have many thoughts, as I'm sure you do as well. I've heard you express some of them. Some of the things I've heard you express to each other are about the realities of young people's lives these days, that most families have 2 working parents and very little disposable time or income. The reality that older folks living on fixed incomes while inflation rises and rises can't afford what they used to be able to afford. I've heard you talk about the truth that all of us, no matter our age or stage, have less tolerance for organizations that don't truly fill our hearts and allow us to pursue our visions of a better world. All of that is true. And I think that sometimes we forget that our UU congregations are also subject to all the same pressures and shifts as the outside world itself. So the gap in leadership that folks sometimes recognize in congregational life right now, I think it mirrors the subtle changes in the workforce outside these walls. Young folks haven't moved into places of leadership in the same way as their forebears because those forebears haven't stepped out or retired, haven't been able to, right? Have stayed in their positions. The gap in attendance and membership isn't because somehow people need community less or want to serve less. If anything, they need it more. But it's because we've forgotten that very truth. that we need it most when we think we don't, and because too many of us don't realize what it looks like when we have it. So I know that you've thought about the threshold we sit on as a religious institution in 2020, about all the ways the world is forcing us to change and imagine the future of congregational life, a future that might look very different from what was built here over many decades and what we thought we were leaving for the future. I know that some of you have felt the grief and loss of letting go, the somewhat frightening possibility of the unknown, the overwhelm of trying to make something new and exciting that retains the heart and soul of congregational life. And I know that you have heard me say in plain and no uncertain terms over the last 3 years that the culture and world we had when the pandemic began wasn't actually the one we wanted, that there were so many ways we could improve, build, fix what was broken in our world if we wanted to. Now, to be very clear, congregational life wasn't broken. This place wasn't broken. But this place and others like it have an opportunity now, a chance to rebuild our vision, restate or reaffirm our mission, a chance to change how we do things, embrace new ways of meeting our goals. We have a chance not to start completely again, but to discern what the actual center is that holds. See the world for what it is now, not what we wish it was, or some vision from the past, and then do our best to meet the world's need while holding true to the values and vision that we share. So today, as we look toward the unfolding of this new congregational year, which starts next week, it's in gathering next week, please don't forget. As we look toward the unfolding of this new congregational year, I want to share with you just a handful of thoughts on what it's going to look like for us to intentionally step off the threshold of the pandemic, right, and step into whatever is happening next. So first, as we move through the year of services, we're going to embrace a meta theme of this moment. We always have a large theme, though you may not always realize it, and then we have monthly themes. So this year, our overarching yearly theme is this moment, okay? And we're going to ask ourselves questions each month. So in September, we're going to ask ourselves what Unitarian Universalism is in this moment. In October, we're going to ask ourselves where we belong in this moment. In November, we'll consider who is in the circle of care in this moment, and perhaps who else should be. And in December, we'll talk about what is holy in this moment. We're going to do this straight through June as a way of recognizing the challenge of these past threshold years and as a way to invite ourselves into both embracing the moment we are in and considering what it calls us to moving forward. We will do each month what Janice does, looking back and looking forward, gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world and our place in the vast infinity of existence. So we're going to do that with intention, with clarity, with openness, and with conversation. We also will move this year into a deeper commitment than ever before to bring our gifts out into the community we live in. We've opened to the community our Whole Lives classes, those age-appropriate classes on health, safety, sexuality, and ethics. We're no longer restricting those to UUs alone, but we're offering space to members of our surrounding communities as we catch up our kindergarten through 6th graders on this vital curriculum that they've missed during the pandemic. We'll do the same for other programming, advertising actively those events that have always been open and those that have been more insider. Part of this will involve each and every one of us telling our friends and family and neighbors about the amazing things going on here. And that bit's important. There's a lot going on this year. You haven't seen it yet, but there's a master calendar coming your way, and it is packed. In the pandemic, we have done important, vital work, the work of maintaining and strengthening community, and we are stepping that up a lot this fall. There'll be monthly Friday evening potlucks open to everyone. Monthly after service, there'll be an adult education on spiritual practices. In the fall, there'll be an adult religious education class about owning our religious past, so looking back so that we can move forward. And another in the spring that explores ethics. We'll have 6 intro to UU classes, over the course of the year to ensure that anyone who wants to learn more about who we are and what we do has a chance to learn. There'll be frequent special coffee hours that invite you to bring dishes from your family or your heritage so we can celebrate together. We will have, once again, a social justice weekend in March. October, we're having the homecoming that Jack mentioned. There are t-shirts already on sale. There is a link in Realm. Get your t-shirts now. For parents and other caregivers of minors, we're having a once-a-month online support group. Our older children will be doing the coming of age programming that delves into their identity and their theology. There will be events designed to help create community in our neighborhood and to open our doors. We'll continue the Share the Porch program that brings together folks from surrounding towns to donate goods that folks need. We're going to continue our concerts, additionally adding some performance opportunities. We're hosting a garage sale in October and a holiday boutique in December. I'm just going to list the whole calendar. All of this on top of our normal activities, all the social justice groups that do such good work, all the long-standing education and spiritual growth groups that help us deepen our sense of self, the groups that offer support and care, and all the other special events for families and children. So this year won't look like pre-pandemic years, because it can't. Nothing can. It also won't look like the pandemic years. It will look like something all its own. It will be, as every year really is, unique and different. We can't and don't want to go back to what things were in 2019. We're not trying to recapture some mythic past. We have the chance to create and build something that can thrive into the future. Last year approximated something full, but you may remember that our children couldn't start RE right away. We had to lock down in January. Christmas Eve was online. This year, we're going to start as we mean to go on, with a full complement of programming, a sense of opportunity and energy, an absolute commitment to holding it all, the challenge and the grief and the joy. And so this year will take us intentionally finding and holding fast to that silken thread of joy underneath it all, even as we do the hard work of letting go and changing and growing and risking and experimenting. It won't always be easy. It won't be simple and quiet and normal, but I absolutely believe it will be worth every minute of work, every minute of effort, because what is on the other side of this threshold is something deeper, something true, something vital, something real, something so desperately needed in this world. On the other side of the threshold is loving community that reaches out and encompasses all things. We have been an angsty shadow, hanging out on the threshold, waiting, watching, maybe getting in our own way. And perhaps we've grown a little too comfortable there. This year, and we'll hold hands while we do it, this year we're going to step off the threshold to the other side, come what may. I know change can be scary. As a child, I cried when my mother switched the lamp in my bedroom. I really do get it. I know what it is to fear and hate change. I know it can be hard to let go of what was, what we thought would be. That one's especially tricky, right? And to open ourselves to what is right now. I know that thinking about how something beloved might be different moving forward is challenging. I know that some of you don't want things to change, that there's been too much change already. All I can do is promise that I and the rest of the leadership of this congregation will do everything in our power to ensure that the center holds, that the changes don't change the deep truths, and that the beating heart remains. And I will say to you what I sometimes say to my children, because I think I often need to hear it myself. You don't have to be happy about it. You don't have to smile while we're doing it, but I need you to do it. I need you to come with me. I need you to come with us as we uncover what the best is of what we have been, what the best is of who we are right now, and what the best is that we can be in the future. I need you. We need you. We need each other. And each of us needs to be open to the joy that is very real in every moment, even when it feels a bit far below the surface. Even when things are frustrating and hard, we can and we do create joy together. So that's what we're going to hold on to this year. Tighter than ever before is the joy of possibility, the joy of just being together, the joy of living these precious and beautiful lives of ours. We're going to hold that string together. We're going to energize each other. We will go out into the world together. We will hold the woes for each other, and we will rejoice and rejoice and rejoice together. So may it be.